What's up, YouTube? Mana Dorks here. I'm Brandon. Today I'm just going to bring you guys a deck take. I got Obeka Splitter of Seconds for you. This is a deck I've been really excited to bring you guys. This is my favorite deck recently that I've built, so I'm really excited. I just want to bring it to you guys and then see what you guys think about it. So let's get into that. All right, so here's my deck tech with Obeka Splitter of Seconds. So she is in Grixis. She is one generic, blue, black, and a red. She's a 2/5 Ogre Warlock with Menace. Whenever Obeka Splitter of Seconds deals combat damage to a player, you get that many additional upkeep steps after this phase. Alright, so now that we know what she does, I'm going to move into my creature pile. So these are my upkeep creatures.
Upcreep? We like upcreep? I
We like
that.
upcreep.
Okay.
Alright, so for my two low-cost creatures, I have Dragon Master Outcast and Creeping Bloodsucker. So Outcast, 1 red for a 1/1 human shaman. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 6 or more lands, create a 5/5 red dragon creature token with flying. So he's not going to turn on till later in the game, but when he does, he's going to keep bodies on the board so I can block because I'm going to be a big target. And Creeping Bloodsucker is 1 and a black. At the beginning of your upkeep, Creeping Bloodsucker deals 1 damage to each opponent. You gain life equal to the damage dealt this way. So he's going to keep me alive while getting my opponent's life totals pretty low. And he's also a 1/2 vampire.
And that also, you gain all the life that people lost, right? So if there's a 4-player pod, you're gaining 3 life.
Yep.
That. That's really nice. And that's a common?
Oh, yeah. All right, for my medium cost, I have Braids Conjure Adept, Twilight Prophet, Bonehorde Dracosaur, Plarganasari. So Braids Conjure Adept, she's 2 and 2 blue. For a 2/2 human wizard, at the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player may put an artifact, creature, or land card from the hand onto the battlefield. So this card, I'll be honest, I'm kind of iffy about because it gives benefit to my opponents. I'll benefit from it more, obviously, because I'm getting more upkeeps than them, but this is a card I usually play when I have a full hand of permanents that I just want to dump onto the board that are going to help me win, usually that turn, or protect me in some kind of way or something to ensure my victory. So she's something I use later in the game, and I use it more strategically, not just to, put stuff on board and,
Yeah, because you don't want to give advantage to anyone when you're not gaining anything.
Right. So Twilight Prophet is 2/2 black for a 2/4 vampire cleric, has flying and ascend. So if you control 10 or more permanents, you get the city's blessing for the rest of the game. And at the beginning of your upkeep, if you have the city's blessing, reveal the top card of your library and put it into your hand. Each opponent loses X life and you gain X life, where X is that card's mana value. So this is going to keep filling my hand with cards. It's going to, once again, burn opponents for life, and I'm going to gain that life. So this is similar to a Creeping Bloodsucker, except it gives me cards.
Very nice.
And then next I got Bonehorde Dracosaur, so that's 3 and 2 red for a 5/5 dinosaur dragon with flying and first strike. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top 2 cards of your library. You may play them this turn. If you exiled a land card this way, create a 3/1 red dinosaur creature token. If you exiled a non-land card this way, create a treasure token. So basically, I'm getting 3/1 bodies or treasure tokens on a flying first strike 5/5.
That's disgusting.
So pretty good, not bad. And next, I got Plarganasari for 3 and 2 red also. It's a 5/4 orc Efreet. At the beginning of your upkeep, each player exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile a non-land card. An opponent chooses a non-land card exiled this way. You may cast up to 2 spells from among the other cards exiled this way without paying their mana costs.
So that puts it to a vote, and normally you'll at least get 1 decent card out of it.
Yep. So this brings politics into the game. I can usually make friends, make alliances with people. Obviously by not hitting their deck. But the good thing about this, I'm getting 2 spells per upkeep. So even if Obeka is only getting me 2 additional upkeeps per turn, that's 4 extra spells.
Yeah, that's
that I can cast for free. So this guy is really good. 5/4 bodies. He's a blocker. Because like I said, once again, you're going to be a target with this deck. So he's not bad. All right, those are my mid cost. On to my higher cost upkeep creatures. So I have only 2 of them, but they are pretty mean. I'll start with Skyline Despot first. So for 5 and 2 red, you get a 5/5 dragon flyer. So when he enters, you become the monarch. And at the beginning of your upkeep, if you are the Monarch, put a 5/5 red dragon creature token with flying onto the battlefield. So similar to the Dragon Master Outcast, except this one makes you the Monarch, which gives you an extra draw at the end of your turn. And so next I have Herald of Leshrac, 6 and a black for a 2/4 avatar. He has flying and he has a cumulative upkeep. Gain control of a land you don't control.
Get that out of here.
Jeremy doesn't like that because he plays landfall, but Herald of Leshrac gets +1/+1 for each land you control but don't own. And then when he leaves play, each player gains control of each land he or she owns that you control. So this card's awesome. I'm just gonna say, like, if I can get this on board and keep him on board, you basically win the game. Like, if you just take everyone's lands, they can't do anything. So
it's funny. It's like if someone elks him with Oko and he hits the graveyard, they don't get their lands back because it wasn't him that hit the graveyard.
Yep, it removed all of his abilities
and turned him into an elk.
Yep. We actually went through that at Command Fest, so that's why he brings it up. It was actually a really, really fun
it was great
moment. So,
and that happened to be during the Emperor game.
That was the Emperor game we played. I stole all the Rat players' lands. Yeah, good time. So this card's great. I will be honest, it does feel bad when you dump 7 mana into it and it gets removed almost instantly or countered or something like that. So that is, it does have a pretty big setback in that case.
Plus some lightning greaves on that dude.
Yeah, but if you get him on with some protection and you're able to actually get his ability off, he makes for fun times. All right, next up I have 2 mana creatures. So I have Nightscape Familiar, 1 and a black for a 1/1 zombie. Blue spells and red spells you cast cost 1 less to cast, and I can pay 1 and a black and regenerate him. So he's just a mana reducer for all my blue and red spells, which I have a lot of. And then I have next up, obviously, Dockside Distortionist. Many people play this card. It's almost boring at this point. We all know what he does. He enters. I make treasures based on how many artifacts and enchantments my opponents control. So there's ways that I can copy the treasures that he makes and, get win on that turn. So there's multiple different combos and things I could do with him in the deck. So he's not in here just simply because he's a Dockside. All right, next up I have a utility creature, I suppose. So I have Silent Arbiter. He's 4 mana for a 1/5 construct. No more than 1 creature can attack each combat, and no more than 1 creature can block each combat. So when I have him on board with Obeka, basically she's unblockable, and then I can only get attacked with 1 creature per combat.
You got Menace.
So yeah, when you have Menace and then Silent Arbiter, yeah, she's just unblockable. Good times, free upkeeps. And then it keeps me from being able to get attacked a bunch. So,
and both of them creatures are big as heck in their toughness.
Oh yeah, they both got
chunky butts,
badongadongs. They got numbers on them. So this is a great card to have in the deck. I think it is 4 mana, so it's a little higher cost. But if you can afford that in the game, I think that this will sway the game in your direction.
Yeah, especially if someone's storming the board with creatures.
Yeah, especially if you're playing a token creature, a token player. This pretty much just shuts them down, and it allows you to keep attacking with Obeka and gaining your value with your upkeep triggers. So this is a great card, I think. All right, and then next up I have another utility creature. I have Roaming Throne, so I put him in here basically just because extra upkeeps. I mean, extra upkeeps equals extra fun.
Yeah. Yeah, with her, you choose Ogre, and every time she pops off, she triggers, he'll double that trigger.
Yep. She is the only Ogre in the deck, so...
It's literally just meant for her.
Just for her, but hey, she's my commander. She's going to be on board most of the time, so why not? I think this card, I mean, I already know this card's pretty great. I've used it a few times, and it's helped me pop off a couple of times, so...
And since it has some ward too, you got protection on it to at least get a chance to get it to pop off.
Mm-hmm. All right, so next I will move into my mana artifacts. First up, I have Soul Ring, Soul Talisman. Everyone knows Soul Ring, pay 1, tap for 2. And then Soul Talisman is very similar, except it has Suspend. So when you play it, you pay 1 generic mana, and you suspend it for with 3 time counters. And then every upkeep, you remove a counter. And when the last one is removed, it goes on the stack, and you cast it. So it's basically a Soul Ring, taps for 2 colorless. All right, and then I have Mox Tantalite. I have a couple of Talismans, an Arcane Signet, Felwar Stone. I'll save those 2 for afterwards. Okay, so Mox Tantalite, it's another suspend mana rock, but this one can suspend itself for 0, and then it taps for 1 mana of any color. And it also gets 3 time counters, so every upkeep, remove a counter, and then once the last is removed, you cast it. Talisman of Creativity, so 2, you could tap it for generic, or you could tap it for a blue and a red, or tap it for a blue or a red, and then it deals 1 damage to you. Similar with Talisman of Dominance, tap for a colorless, or tap for a blue or red, and then it deals damage. Felwar Stone.
It's blue or black.
Oh, sorry, blue or black. Sorry about that. Felwar Stone is another 2 mana rock. It taps for 1 mana of any color that an opponent controls could produce, or the land an opponent controls could produce, sorry. And then Arcane Signet, another 2 mana rock, taps for any color of your color's identity. All right, next up I have Replicating Ring and Midnight Clock. So these are mana rocks, but they also have upkeep triggers on them. So Replicating Ring is a 3 colorless for a snow artifact. So tap, add 1 mana of any color, and then at the beginning of your upkeep, put a night counter on Replicating Ring. Then if it has 8 or more night counters on it, remove all of them and create 8 colorless snow artifact tokens named Replicating Ring with tap, add 1 mana of any color. So this card's pretty awesome. One game I used, what's the enchantment that I play that copies an artifact? Mechanized Production.
Yeah, and
I copied this, and so this made 8 copies, and then I was copying the Replicating Ring, which those were making copies. Yep. So yeah, mana wasn't a problem in that game. This is pretty good. If you can get the upkeeps to 8, you're swimming in mana. And then Midnight Clock, 2 and a blue. So it taps for a blue, and you could pay 2 and a blue and put an hour counter on Midnight Clock. And then at the beginning of each upkeep, not just yours, put an hour counter on Midnight Clock. And when the 12th hour counter is put on Midnight Clock, shuffle your hand and graveyard into your library, then draw 7 cards, and then exile it. So this is good. It's a mana rock, and it also will refill my hand once it reaches its 12 midnight counter. So that's really good. Good card draw. Keeps me gassed and refueled. All right, next I'm going to move into my equipments, artifacts. So I have Lizard Blades. So 1 in red for an artifact creature equipment lizard. It has double strike. It's a 1/1, and then equipped creature has double strike. So this is in here because I equip it to Obeka, and she hits twice. That gives me 4 upkeeps. Pretty straightforward. All right, next up, I got some boots. So I got Lightning Greaves, Winged Boots, and Swiftfoot Boots. So Lightning Greaves, 2 mana for an artifact equipment. Equipped creature has haste and shroud, and the equip cost is 0. So this is great to protect my commander. And it also gives her haste, so she can swing first turn that I play her. So it's really good. So next up, we got the Winged Boots for 1 and a blue. Equipped creature has flying and ward 4, and has a 1 equip cost. So this is great. It gives her evasion in the form of flying and ward. So if like I said earlier, twice now she's a big target. So this makes your opponent that's targeting her have to pay 4 more. So that's really great. It's a great deterrent. And then flying, menace and flying together, it's going to be hard to block unless the player has 2 flyers. And then Swiftfoot Boots, 2 mana for equipped creature has hexproof and haste, and then equip 1. So basically the same thing as Lightning Greaves, except it's hexproof instead of shroud, and it has a 1 equip cost instead of 0. All right, next up I have Silver Shroud Costume, Brotherhood Regalia, and I have Mithril Coat. So Silver Shroud Costume, 2 mana for an artifact equipment. It has flash. Whenever Silver Shroud Costume enters the battlefield, attach it to target creature you control. That creature gains Shroud until end of turn. Equipped creature can't be blocked, and the equip cost is 3. So this card's great. You keep it in your hand. Usually keep it in your hand until someone's targeting Obeka or something, because you just tap 2. It automatically equips to Obeka at instant speed because it has flash. And so it gives her Shroud until the end of turn, which is great. And then it also makes her unblockable, which she wants. So Silver Shroud's great. Next up, we have Brotherhood Regalia for 2. Equipped creature has Ward 2, is an assassin in addition to its other types, and can't be blocked. And then equip legendary creature 1. So basically for 3 mana, you give your commander Ward 2 and make her unblockable. So this fits right into the theme of the deck, exactly what I'm going for. And then next up, I have Mithril Coat for 3 mana. It's a legendary artifact equipment. It has flash. It is indestructible. And then when Mithril Coat enters the battlefield, attach it to target legendary creature you control. So similar to Silver Shroud Costume, when it ETBs, it gets a free equip. This one on a legendary creature. And then equipped creature has indestructible. So this is just basically protection in in the form of flash. And it in itself has indestructible, which is good. All right, and then for my last 3 equipments, I have the 3 rings in their respective colors. I have Ring of Valkus, Ring of Evo Isle, and then Ring of Zothrid. So Ring of Valkus, equipped creature has haste, and then at the beginning of your upkeep, put a 1/1 counter on equipped creature if it's red. Ring of Evo Isle, I can pay 2, equipped creature gets hexproof until end of turn, and then at the beginning of your upkeep, put a 1/1 counter on equipped creature if it's blue. And then Ring of Zothrid, I could pay 2, regenerate equipped creature. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a 1/1 counter on equipped creature if it's black. So these are great in the deck. They give her some sort of form of evasion. They give Obeka the evasion. And then on your upkeeps, they're giving her 1/1 counters, which are powering her up, which are giving you way more upkeeps. So these I think are auto includes in the deck personally. At least the haste one and the hexproof one. This one's maybe the more iffy one, but I think all 3 fit the deck.
Just one thing about that Ring of Evil Isle. Why is it green? It's supposed to be a blue ring.
Yeah, that is weird. The ring itself is kind of green looking.
The background's green with some blue. I was like, that makes no sense. If anything, your Ring of Android looks more blue than this. That was just weird. It's something I wanted to point out. It's some jank.
All right. So next, I have 2 more artifacts, but these are more win cons in the deck. So I have Darksteel Reactor for generic. So it has indestructible, and then at the beginning of your upkeep, you may put a charge counter on it. When Darksteel Reactor has 20 or more charge counters on it, you win the game. So this is good if Obeka's powered up and you could just snowball into a lot of upkeeps. This will accrue counters, and then once you hit 20 or more, you win the game. Portal to Phyrexia costs 9 mana. When ETBs, each opponent sacks 3 creatures, and then at the beginning of your upkeep, put target creature from your graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. It's a Phyrexian in addition to its other types. So I consider this more of like a win con for the deck, because you're making your opponent sack usually a good amount of their board, and then with all the upkeeps I'm getting, I'm just bringing all that stuff back to my board. So if you can't win with all that value and that many creatures, I mean, what are you doing? All right, I will move into my instance. These are my interaction. So I have Bedevil and Chaos Warp. So for 2 black and a red, I can destroy a target artifact, creature, or planeswalker. And then Chaos Warp, 2 and a red, I can, the owner of target permanent shovels it into his or her library and then reveals the top of his or her library, top card of his or her library. If it's a permanent card, he or she puts it on the battlefield. All right, next I have some counters, more interaction, but counters specifically. I have an offer you can't refuse. So for 1 blue, counter target non-creature spell, its controller creates 2 treasure tokens. So this is good. It's a low cost counter. It counters pretty much anything except for a creature. Only downside, it gives your opponent 2 treasures. Then I have Mana Drain. So for 2 blue, counter target spell at the beginning of your next main phase, add an amount of mana equal to that spell's mana value. That's colorless mana. Next up, I have Negate. For 1 in blue, counter target non-creature spell.
Short, sweet, and to the point.
Yep.
Counters.
And then next up are my free spells that I have when I'm controlling my commander, which I usually do, or I'm usually trying to do. So first up, I have Fierce Guardianship. It's 2 in a blue. If you control a commander, you may cast a spell without paying its mana cost. Counter target non-creature spell. And then Deflecting Swat, 2 in a red. If you control a commander, you may cast a spell without paying its mana cost. If you may choose new targets for target spell or ability. And then Deadly Rollick, 3 in a black. If you control a commander, you may cast a spell without paying its mana cost. Exile target creature.
All good cards.
Yep, all good cards. All pretty much stables in commander. Yep. Next up, I'm going to move on to my sorceries. So I'm going to start out with my tutors. I have Demonic Tutor. Everyone knows that. 1 in black, search your library for a card, put it into your hand, then shuffle. And then I have Inevitable Betrayal. So I can suspend it with 3 time counters on it by paying 1 and 2 blue. Search target opponent's library for a creature card and put that card onto the battlefield under my control. And then that player shuffles. So this is pretty awesome in the deck. I mean, you pay 3 mana. Usually you'll blow through those upkeeps in a turn, maybe 2. And then you could just search that opponent's library, take their best creature, and, there you go. Next up, we have Profane Tutor. So I can suspend this for 2 time counters. I'm sorry, suspend it with 2 time counters by paying 1 in the black. Search your library for a card, put that card into your hand, and then shuffle.
So it's just a delayed Demonic Tutor.
It's a delay, yep.
So basically you got 2 Demonic Tutors in your deck,
yep.
Which is awesome.
Pretty awesome. All right, next up, I have 2 draw spells. So I have Ancestral Vision. So for 1 blue, I can suspend it with 4 time counters, and then target player draws 3 cards. And then I have Inspiring Refrain. So it's 4 mana, 2 blue, if you want to hard cast it. Or you could pay a blue and 2 to suspend it with 3 time counters on it. Draw 2 cards, and then exile Inspiring Refrain with 3 time counters on it. So basically, once the time counters go to 0, you draw 2 cards, and then you resuspend it with 3 time counters on it.
That's a good way to get some draws out.
Yep, so this card just sticks around with 3 time counters, and if, once it hits 0, you draw 2, and it just keeps looping itself. So awesome. the refrains in the deck, I love. Loopable cards, great. Speaking of the refrains, I have Rousing Refrain. So if you hard cast it, it's 3 and 2 red, but I'll never do that. So I can suspend it for 1 in a red with 3 time counters on it, and I add red for each card in target opponent's hand. Until the end of turn, you don't lose this mana as steps and phases end. Exile Rousing Refrain with 3 time counters on it. So once again, it's a loopable card. This is basically a Jessica's Will suited specifically for this deck. I'm just going to keep adding a bunch of mana every 3 upkeeps. All right, next up I have Feed the Swarm. So removal, 1 in a black, destroy target creature or enchantment opponent controls, and I lose life equal to that permanent's mana value. So I like the flexibility of the card being pretty low mana for removal, and I can destroy a creature or enchantment.
Which enchantments are a little harder to remove than some of the other stuff.
Yep. So that's why I'm fine with it. Losing the
little
life.
Bit of life. You get 40 life.
All right, and then next up I have my board wipes. So I have Toxic Deluge, Blasphemous Act, and then Chain Reaction. So Toxic Deluge is 2 in a black. As an additional cost to cast a spell, pay X life. All creatures get -X until end of turn. So I like this board wipe. It's good. It gets around Indestructible, things like that. It's low cost too, with the downside of paying X life. Then Blasphemous Act, it's 8 in a red. It costs 1 less to cast for each creature on the battlefield, and then Blasphemous Act deals 13 damage to each creature.
Why 13? That's what's weird. That's a weird number.
It is weird, just like arbitrary. Just I don't know. They picked it out of thin air, I guess. It works though.
Yes, it does.
All right, and then I have Chain Reaction for 2 and 2 red. Chain Reaction deals X damage to each creature, where X is the number of creatures on the battlefield. I like Chain Reaction. 4 mana for a board wipe. It's pretty standard. And then
Blasphemous Axe is literally just a 1-drop if there's enough creatures, and then your Toxic Deluge is a 3-drop with some life.
Yep. I like Chain Reaction because there's just a ton of stuff on board. 4 mana, it's all gone. All right. And so next up, I will move into my enchantments. First up, I'll start with the unblockable stuff. So I have Aqueous Form for a blue. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature can't be blocked. And then whenever it attacks, I scry 1. So this is great. I mean, 1 blue to make Obeka unblockable. I'll take that any day. Aether Tunnel for 1 and a blue. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +1/+0 and can be blocked. So same thing in Aqueous Form, except for an extra mana, you give her a +1, which translates into an extra upkeep. And then I have Thassa, God of the Sea. So it's 2 and a blue. She's indestructible. And then as long as your devotion to blue is less than 5, she isn't a creature. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, scry 1. And then for 1 and a blue, I can make one of my creatures unblockable. So she's good because she's a twofer. She does upkeep triggers with scrying and then makes stuff unblockable.
Really nice.
All right, next up I have Paradox Haze. So for 2 and a blue, I can enchant player. At the beginning of enchanted player's first upkeep each turn, that player gets an additional upkeep step after this step.
Self-explanatory. You just gave yourself an extra upkeep to get triggers.
All right, next I have As Foretold. So 2 and a blue, at the beginning of your upkeep, put a time counter on As Foretold. And then once each turn, you may pay 0 rather than pay the mana cost for a spell you cast with mana value X or less, where X is the number of time counters on As Foretold. So basically, each upkeep, it's going to get counters, and then once per turn, I can cast a spell for free based on the mana value, if it's equal to or less the amount of counters on this. So this is really good. I get a free spell each turn, and with how many upkeeps I'm getting, it's not hard to get this up to 10 counters or more, you know? So I think that's very good in the deck. Next up, I have Phyrexian Arena. This is an all-star in the deck. For 1 and 2 black, at the beginning of your upkeep, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. So this keeps your hand filled up for the low cost of 1 life for each card. All right, next I have Palace Siege, Extravagant Replication, and Mechanized Production. So Palace Siege, 3 and 2 black. As it enters the battlefield, I choose Khans or Dragons. So if I choose Khans, at the beginning of your upkeep, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. And then Dragons, at the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Usually I'm going to pick Dragons, mainly because just the deck is not very creature heavy. I think I have around like 13 or so creatures in the deck, so it just makes more sense to pick the Dragons. Plus it keeps me more survivable while draining my opponents, so I think that's a better option. And then I have Extravagant Replication. So for 4 and 2 blue, at the beginning of your upkeep, create a token that's a copy of another target non-land permanent you control. So this card is absolutely nuts. If you can keep this on board and if you get this proccing, you're just copying things left and right. I mean, just for example, you get two upkeeps. You can copy your portal to fight Rexia twice, which I've done personally in a game or two. So there's just a lot of shenanigans you could do with that. You can copy Mechanized Production. You can copy your Palace Siege. Double up on all your burning triggers, and there's just so much utility, so many things you could do with this card. I love the card. Next up, I have Mechanized Production. So for 2 and 2 blue, enchant artifact you control. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a token that's a copy of enchanted artifact. Then if you control 8 or more artifacts with the same name as one another, you win the game.
We're not going to talk about the replicating ring. Calm down.
Yeah. We already spoke on the replicating ring, so I won't go back into that. Jeremy has a little PTSD from that game. But
you're not wrong.
This card's great. I mean, it fits right into the deck. I'm getting a lot of upkeeps, so I have a decent amount of artifacts that I can copy in the deck. Usually I copy a mana source if I need mana, or I copy an upkeep, artifact if I need that. So yeah, this card has, multiple applications. It's win con. I think this card's just great. All right, and then for my last 4 cards, I have the Courts. So these are great in the deck. They all enter and they give you the Monarch. So I'll start with Court of Embereth. So 2 and 2 red. When it enters, you get the Monarch. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a 3/1 red knight creature token. Then if you're the Monarch, Court of Embereth deals X damage to each opponent, where X is the number of creatures you control. I can't tell you how many times I have made an insane amount of tokens and then just dookied on opponents' life totals. This card is great. It's this is probably my favorite court, tied with Court of Vantress. So Court of Vantress, 2 and 2 blue. When ETBs, you become the Monarch, and then at the beginning of your upkeep, choose up to 1 other target enchantment or artifact. If you are the Monarch, you may create a token that's a copy of it. If you're not the Monarch, you may have Court of Vantress become a copy of it, except it has this ability. So similar to Extravagant Replication, this just copies things, goes pretty nuts. You just got to keep the Monarch for it to go absolutely nuts. Okay, and then I have Court of Locthwain for 2 and 2 black. When ETBs, become the Monarch. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of target opponent's library. You may play that card for as long as it remains exiled, and mana of any type can be spent to cast it. If you are the Monarch, until the end of turn, you may cast a spell from among cards exiled with Court of Locthwain without paying its mana cost. So this is great. It's just exiling cards from opponents' libraries, and I can play it for free if I'm the Monarch. So the good thing about all of these, if I have Obeka already on board, I play these in my main phase, I go to combat, I'm automatically getting the Monarch trigger from these because I just became the Monarch before my combat. So these are all great, I think. Yeah, they pretty much turn live on the turn you play them. But yeah, getting free casts of your opponent's decks is just, I mean, pretty self-explanatory. Next up, I have Court of Ambition. So for 2 and 2 black, when ETBs, I become the Monarch once again. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses 3 life unless they discard a card. If you're the Monarch, instead, each opponent loses 6 life unless they discard a card. Or discard 2 cards, sorry.
Ew.
That card gets really nasty. No one likes discarding cards, and 6 life is a lot to take per upkeep, especially if I'm swinging in with
5 upkeeps.
5 upkeeps, life. You know, so it's a tough decision. You lose your hand or you die, so.
Which means you lose anyway.
Yeah. So yeah, these are all great in the deck, all stars as well. Yeah, that sums it up for the Courts. All right, next up, I got my land package. So here I'm going to start with all my non-basic lands. So I have Crumbling Necropolis, which is a tri-land and enters tapped. Arena of Glory, enters the battlefield tapped unless I control a mountain. It taps for a red, and then I can pay a red, tap it, and exert it. I can add 2 red to my mana pool, and if that mana is spent on a creature spell, it gains haste until the end of turn. So I run this. I run this because it is great. It can give haste to Obeka the first turn she's played, which means instant value if I have a value piece on board, like an upkeep trigger.
And it pays for half of our CMC too, because that's 2 mana right there with that one. Even though you have to invest 1 into it, that extra haste is great.
Yep. All right, and then I have Access Tunnel. So it taps for a colorless, and then I can tap 3 and tap it. Target creature with power 3 or less can't be blocked this turn. So this works great if she's not powered up at all yet, or if she's powered with Aether Tunnel but just like a one counter. This is great. She gets through at the low cost of 3 mana. Pretty good. And then I have a Reliquary Tower.
That does nothing. It has no text.
No, it's cool looking. That's it.
Okay. No maximum hand size. We get it.
I have Command Tower, self-explanatory, goes in every commander deck, taps for any color of your commander's identity. Then I have Rogue's Passage, similar to Access Tunnel, except
it's just unblockable.
It taps for 4, or you pay 4 into it, tap it, and target creature can't be blocked this turn. So any creature, not just 1 with 3 or less. Then I have Command Beacon, so it taps for a colorless, or I can tap it, sack it, put your commander into your hand from the command zone. So basically, this can dodge commander attacks.
Yep.
And then I have Exotic Orchard, so it taps for 1 mana of any land that a land an opponent controls could produce. All right, so those are my non-basics. Next up, I got my fetches. So I have Bloodstained Mire, Flooded Strand, and Polluted Delta. So Bloodstained Mire, tap, pay 1 life, sack it, search your library for a swamp or a mountain, put it onto the battlefield, untapped, and then shuffle. Flooded Strand, pay 1 life, tap, pay 1 life, sack it, search your library for a plains or an island, put it on the battlefield, untapped, and then shuffle. And then Polluted Delta, tap, pay 1 life, sack it, search your library for an island or a swamp, put it on the battlefield, untapped, and then shuffle. So very great cards. They're searchers for islands with types on them. With
any lands with types.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, next up I have my shocks. I have Blood Crypt, Steam Vents, Watery Grave. So they all enter the battlefield. I get pay 2 life to untap them.
Yeah,
or
make them untapped.
Yep.
Yeah, when they enter, or they enter tapped.
Yep.
All self-explanatory. Either hurt yourself or they enter tapped.
All right, and then next up I have a few check lands. So I have Foreboding Ruins, Dragon Skull Summit, Sulphur Falls, and Drowned Catacomb. Foreboding Ruins, as it enters, you may reveal a swamp or a mountain. If I don't, it enters tapped. It taps for a red and a black. Dragon Skull Summit enters tapped unless I control a swamp or a mountain, taps for a red and a black. Sulphur Falls enters the battlefield unless you control an island or a mountain, and it taps for a red or blue. And then Drowned Catacomb, it ETBs unless you control an island or a swamp, and then tap for a blue or a black.
Yep, they all enter tapped unless you do their check.
Yep. And next up, I have a couple of pain lands. So I have Underground River and Shivan Reef. They both tap for a colorless, or I can tap them for the respective color and then take a damage. All right, and then last up, I have my basics. So I run 4 mountains. I run 6 islands. And then I run 5 swamps. I personally think people run too many non-basics in their lands and don't run enough basics. So, yeah, I just got a few in there. Just a few. But yeah, that's my Obeka Splitter of Seconds deck tech. I hope you all enjoyed. You know, let me know in the comments what you think I should take out, swap. If let me know what you think I'm doing right. Let me know what you think I'm doing wrong. Give me some pointers. Just comments. Let me know what you think. And yeah, I hope to see you guys on the next one. Thanks for viewing. See you.